This video is all around how we change our release pattern, you know, and our release pattern is huge. It is literally how we deliver the club to the ball, and you know, and if you can get in and change that, then you really are changing your ball flight and becoming a better ball striker and controlling the direction better as well. But we also know from our last video with Dr. Mark Bull that literally targeting what you do with your hands and arms to change it is a very, very difficult way to go about it. There are too many other influences that will dictate your release pattern. So in this video, we are going to look at how we manipulate some of those other influences and get a different pattern and change your ball flight. So if you are somebody who's been a bit scoopy and would consider yourself a flipper, we're going to get into that. Equally, if you are someone who just drives it low and maybe loses it right a lot, we're going to get into that. But we're not going to be targeting directly, at least, what you do with your hands through impact. We're going to let the task lead us. Okay, let's start by understanding that your release pattern is quite considerably personal to you, because ultimately what we're trying to do here is we're trying to balance out a lot of the torques and forces that are going on in your swing so that you can deliver the club. My release pattern is never going to look like somebody with a lot more swing speed than me. Equally, somebody who's just getting started. There's just a whole different kind of set of parameters going on there. But let's understand, you know, in basic form, what's happening as we release the club. And I like to use this really kind of simple reference of the logo on your glove, or maybe if you're wearing a watch, you can just notice where that's pointing. So at setup, the logo on my glove's pointing more or less, depending on your grip, at the target. And we want to return kind of there, but with a little bit of shaft lean, and my weight's across. But in the swing, I am pulling my hands around the hand path as I move the weight across. Now, if I just keep pulling, and I see this a lot with kind of very athletic, strong players who are just kind of getting going, if I just keep pulling and pulling and pulling, you'll see there that the logo is still pointing at the camera, and that club is not going to square up. We get a lot of shanks and a lot of shots that go a long way right, and occasionally they manage to square it through some kind of twisting of the handle, but then don't get it airborne. So at some point in the swing, and this is a conversation which is rarely had, at some point in the swing, the handle needs to slow down to allow the head to accelerate and catch up into the ball. So as the handle slows down, the club speeds up. Nobody ever says that. It's because I don't think any golfer ever tries to do that. Nobody tries to slow the handle down. It's part of the task. It's very much what we call an implicit skill, much like riding a bike. So when you're learning to ride a bike, you are again balancing out torques and forces. As you push your pedal down on one side, you need to kind of adjust yourself in order that, you know, that doesn't kind of pull you off. And the whole thing about balance is a very much an implicit thing. You can't be told to do that. You can't think about it. You need to put a lot of time in, be willing to fail, and get on with it. Similar thing here. This idea of slowing the handle down is something that happens, but it's not something that we really think about. But back to the point. We're pulling the handle, we slow the handle down, and then the club can fling out and line up. At the very beginner level, that often happens with a kind of conscious turning over of the right hand, right arm, trail arm for left-handers. But as we get better and better, we realise, probably less on a conscious level, we realise that actually how I slow the handle down and the direction of the handle will do most of the heavy lifting for us. We don't actually have to kind of consciously release it. First up then is the overly aggressive wrist action. So I suppose many people would call that flipping. So that is where the wrists would unwind too early, the thumbs go down early, and there's quite an aggressive kind of motion with the wrists here. The issue being low point can get too far behind, ball can go too high, and also kind of lots of hooks as that face wraps over. And no doubt if that is you've tried sort of driving the handle and doing the kind of the usual coach-led drills, but this one's different. In this one, we're going to manipulate your relationship with the club face and allow the task to influence how what your options are effectively and how you drive the handle through the ball. So this is one of my absolutely favorite drills, particularly for anybody who would consider themselves in that camp. So first of all, I would ask the player to take their grip and their normal grip, and then loosen their grip, turn the club face maybe 20 degrees to the left, 30 maybe, depending on their grip, and then re-grip it. Now you can see the face is really shut here, and then I would just invite the player to rotate their arms so that the face is now square. And immediately you'll see how the player wants to kind of put their hands forwards to keep it straight. So having set that up, then we've now got you know, compared with our normal situation, we've got a really close club face we can deal with. That tasks you differently. Most golfers flip and release early because they're desperate to get that club square. Well, we've got a different task now. Our task now is to not to square the club, but stop it from hooking. So we've got to keep the face open. So initially, you will find, I'm going to set up with that face very closed. Initially, you will find you will just naturally use your normal release pattern. And of course, obviously, you're going to hit a lot of hooks. So now we're engaged. Now we've got a different kind of challenge. So close club face. I've got to work the club a different way now, and that different way is going to mean feeling like we're opening the face, feeling like the handle gets higher through the ball, and these are all more advanced player patterns. So let's see if I can go from that really quite closed club face, you can see it's quite closed there, to working the club under and squaring it through impact that way. Okay, well that's the journey. It was straighter, but it was still a bit of a pull. Let's try that again. Close club face, take a grip, try again. Wow, that was better. And I say wow because the feeling through impact was like nothing I normally have. Literally having to move the club that way has changed my kind of pressure into the floor, how this left hip moves, none of which I was trying to do. I was just focused on how I deliver the club. And the other thing you'll notice is you get amazing compression. So that club face necessitates hands forwards, shaft lean, and probably hands a little bit higher as well. And you're probably thinking, isn't that the same as just kind of positioning your hands on in a stronger position to start with? Well, it is, but I like to do it that way because otherwise we get into conversations as to where the knuckles need to be and all that kind of grip related stuff. Now, because your task is different, you know, the challenge now is to keep the face open. You may find that changes the pitch of the shaft on the way down. I think a lot of people who steepen the club are doing it as they are sort of overly concerned with getting the face square too early and kind of add this steepening pitch to the shaft. So if I've got the face closed and I need to keep it open, I'm more likely to get this kind of under motion this way. Let's give that a try. Wow, that felt really different. That felt lower with my body, didn't mean to. It felt I stayed low and there was this kind of helicopter feel in the through swing. And I bet when I look at it on camera, it doesn't look that different. But such is this kind of sensitivity and that feel and real space of the kind of torque and force that we put on the handle. Now the through swing is going to feel odd. I mean, I can feel my elbow doesn't feel quite right. There's a holding off. I'm aware of that, but I'm also confident that with enough practice, I can improve how that works and I can move my body with it. Remember, this is a motor learning exercise and your body is incredible at adjusting. My hands feel more left, they feel higher. Again, I feel less likely to extend the pelvis. I feel more kind of down in the shot. It feels really different. And all I'm really doing is reacting to the task. It doesn't feel very athletic yet, but I think given a couple of hours practice, this could really start to kind of blend into the other things that I do quite nicely without feeling like I'm actually changing the swing. But what I am changing is the things that really matter, some of the kind of unseen forces that we put on the club. Now, from a playing perspective, you might think, well, crikey, you know, I'm taking a whole new kind of club face and hands relationship to the course. Isn't that going to be really destructive? Well, I suppose initially, yes, you wouldn't do this on the course first time. You'd want to explore it on the range. But I'm pretty confident with that task, I'm going to have a one-way miss. I would have to go a long way to kind of leave this in any way that's sort of meaningfully open and hit a long way right. So certainly in the short term, I can exploit that. I've got a one-way miss. I can aim it down the right and use my new release pattern. So using that club face to change your swing, it can have enormous and profound knock-on effects on how you move your body. And I said we'd also cover the other side of things. That's the player who drives it too low and often doesn't square the face. And most of the time it's because the handle isn't slowing down fast enough. But as we said earlier, that's not something we really kind of consciously work on. Again, we're going to tease that out through a different task. Now, I've had this situation 3 times this month, and I've taken this approach and had a breakthrough each time. Doesn't always work that way, but this is a really lovely organic approach that doesn't take too much thinking and really connects with our kind of sporting intuitive mind. And that is, again, to change the task. So what is the opposite of dragging the handle too long and leaving the face de-lofted and open? Well, let's see if we can get some real height. So let's hit it as high as we can. I would give the player a slightly higher tee than normal. And of course, first of all, we need to agree on the key principles. To hit it higher, we need the club sweeping. Steep and downwards. For many, seems like it would hit it high, but it always delivers too much shaft lean. So sweeping like a driver. And we're also going to move the ball further forwards, initially to driver position. If you find you top it a bit, you might want to kind of come back. But the challenge is, can we sweep the ball off the tee and hit it as high as we possibly can? And as I say, ultimately that means slowing that handle down and letting the club head catch up earlier. So how high can you fly? Ball at the front. Let's get a sweeping motion. This is a 7-iron, by the way, which I'd normally be kind of trying to trap low. This is going to be sweeping and high. That felt brilliant. It's not going to go very far. And for me, yeah, again, that's easy for me. That's kind of my default pattern. But if you're a golfer who drives the handle a lot, when you see it all of a sudden launching, feels amazing. You also feel what it's like to slow the handle and have that club speed up, which for a handle dragger is an amazing kind of transformation. Okay, just preempting a lot of comments that could come here. Isn't that kind of scoopy and all the things kind of, that we've been told not to do? There must be thousands of videos that teach drive, shaft lean, etc. Well, it is, yes, but think about the context and where we've come from. Balancing out somebody who's driven the handle too much, that is a really good thing. And as always, there's a great saying in golf coaching: you can overeat lettuce. If you do enough of one thing, no matter how good it is, eventually it can get you out of balance. But I think there's a bigger story there, and that story is being too bound by the rules. I, like everybody, love a framework. I like to know how things should be done, and I want to know I'm doing it properly. And I think for many golfers, certainly that come to me, they have that mindset, and it will get you so far. But if I could change one thing over my kind of years playing golf, I wish I was less rigidly stuck to the rules. The rules are, by their nature, far too binary and don't allow for all the nuances, things like intuition. And as we know now, balancing out torques and forces doesn't happen with I've got to swing it this way and etc. We know there's a huge kind of variety of golf swings and looks on tour. These are girls and guys that probably weren't so bound by the rules, certainly as I've been over the years. So this is obviously a stage one of a progression of drills. I wouldn't leave the player hitting balls off the front foot with a tall tee. You can't play off the fairway like that. But what a lovely way in to getting the feeling. Now the player knows what it is to slow the handle down and let the face release. And in the same session, it is remarkably easy to progress that on a bit. So we might lower the tee to just a small one, move the ball back a bit. Still getting crazy height, and then it's only a step further to ball on the ground. You would think, wouldn't you? You would think that approach would lead the low point too far behind and too much loft. But again, in context from someone who's driven the handle, they've still got low point in front of the ball and a little bit of shaft lean. It's just not really extreme in the way that it would have been previously. That player also finds a different kind of follow through. The follow through reveals a lot. And trying to just change our follow through, again, is quite a difficult thing. But if you're slowing the club down earlier and differently, you'll find that the way the club finishes and your balance will be different as well. So there we go. That was exploiting some of the task constraints in order to ultimately change your release pattern and your ball flight. We know from the Mark Ball video previously that just trying to change our wrists and arms to the ball is a very difficult thing. other things going on need to change as well. It's a really playful approach. Get yourself on the range, have a play around and see what it does for you. If you've enjoyed the video, then please consider subscribing. I post each week. And until I see you next time, good luck, play well.